In every city, there are stories that never made the papers. Not because they weren't important, but because they were inconvenient. They live in forgotten files, in half-finished investigations, in questions no one wanted answered. This isn't where justice always wins. This is where the echoes remain. This is Reverberating Noir. Some stories don't end. They just stop being told.
And the silence around them is the most disturbing part.
You're listening to Reverberating Noir, and tonight we begin not with a crime scene, not with a name. We begin with a photograph that sat in a suitcase for 57 years, because whoever owned it couldn't throw it away, and couldn't look at it either.
What was in that photograph is what we're here to talk about tonight. And by the end of this episode, I think you'll understand why it stayed hidden for half a century.
1886, a plaza in Parral, Chihuahua, Mexico. The air smells like roasted corn and livestock and dust. Children are running between shuttered storefronts, and then something is dragged into the center of that square, and the children stop running.
What they were looking at was a severed head on a pole, still dripping, recognizable to some as the face of Dave Rudabaugh, outlaw, fugitive. A man who had ridden alongside both Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid. A man who, by every account, should have died years earlier.
And yet, there he was, displayed as a message.
A 19-year-old American photographer named Albert Lone was in that plaza. He had a camera. He took 4 pictures. Mexican police confiscated 2 of the negatives on the spot. The other 2 went into a trunk and stayed there until 1943 when a collector opened that trunk and found them.
Those 2 photographs are the only physical proof that this wasn't folklore. This wasn't a tall tale passed between cowboys at a bar. This happened.
So let's talk about how a man ends up on a pole in a Mexican plaza. Because it doesn't start with one bad decision. It never does.
It starts with a country coming apart at the seams.
David Rudabaugh was born on the 14th of July, 1854, in rural Illinois. His father was a soldier. His father never came home from the war. And that absence, that specific, particular absence, set everything else in motion.
The family drifted. Ohio, Kansas, wherever the next meal might be. And the America they were drifting through was not the America of school books. This was a country stitched together with raw seams. Railroads cutting through uncharted land, towns appearing overnight, some with sheriffs, most with whoever had the quickest draw.
By his early 20s, Rudabaugh had made a choice. Not a dramatic choice, not a cinematic one. Just the quiet, pragmatic choice of a man who saw that the fastest route to survival was force.
By 1876, he'd formed a gang. They called themselves the Trio, stagecoaches, trains, Kansas. And here's the thing about Rudabaugh that most people miss. He wasn't operating alone. He was operating within a system.
That's the part that gets glossed over in the mythology. Dodge City, Kansas, the town Wyatt Earp would later make famous. Before Earp, it was something else entirely. Saloons that doubled as safe houses. Mayors who took cuts from robberies. A whole ecosystem of corruption that made men like Rudabaugh not just possible, but necessary.
January 1878, near Kinsley, Kansas. A train stops. Masked men board. A conductor resists. Shots are fired. The gang runs, but not fast enough.
Bat Masterson, yes, that Bat Masterson leads the posse. They catch Rudabaugh, and this is the moment that defines everything that comes after.
He flips.
He testifies against his own men, secures his freedom in exchange for their convictions. Self-preservation, clean, and simple. But in the world Rudabaugh occupied, betrayal wasn't just a moral failure. It was a death sentence written in slow ink.
He knew that. And he ran anyway, which tells you something about the kind of man he was. Not reckless, calculating, always calculating.
He surfaces in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Not the Las Vegas you're thinking of. A town so lawless it made Dodge City look orderly. He joined something called the Dodge City Gang, a network of gamblers and hired guns operating under a corrupt judge who went by the name Hoodoo Brown. Rigged elections, payoffs, assassinations. Rudabaugh fit right in.
Then comes the 5th of April, 1880. His old associate John Webb is in jail for murder. Rudabaugh tries to break him out. Chaos. Shots fired. Deputy Sheriff Antonio Lino Valdez falls dead in the street.
For over a century, historians placed that bullet in Rudabaugh's gun. Then a researcher found a trial transcript that almost no one had ever read. The shooter was someone else, a man named John J. Allen.
Does that change anything?
It muddies everything. Rudabaugh was there. He was part of the violence. He was pulling a trigger that night. But the specific death that put a price on his head, the one that made him a marked man in New Mexico, that might not have been him, the truth is muddy. Just like everything in this world.
With a price on his head and nowhere left to go, he rides to Fort Sumner, New Mexico, and into the orbit of Billy the Kid.
Think about what that actually means. Billy the Kid was 21 years old, Rudabaugh was 26. A veteran of ambushes, betrayals, jailbreaks, and running. He wasn't there out of loyalty or brotherhood. He was there because nowhere else would take him.
That's not a gang. That's a collection of last resorts.
And Pat Garrett knew it. By late 1880, Garrett's men were closing in. The Kid's operation was shrinking. The hideouts were running out.
The 23rd of December, 1880, Stinking Springs, New Mexico. A desolate stretch of high desert. Freezing. Garrett's posse surrounds a cabin before dawn. A shootout. Hours of standoff in the cold. And then surrender.
Billy the Kid goes one way. Rudabaugh goes to Santa Fe. Mail robbery. 99 years. The Valdez murder charge. The death penalty. He's sitting in a cell facing the end of everything.
And yet.
December 1881. Rudabaugh and Webb, the same Webb he tried to free a year earlier, execute a jailbreak so precise it reads like it was rehearsed. They chip through 6 feet of adobe wall. With smuggled tools, they crawl through sewage tunnels. One prisoner dies in the attempt.
Rudabaugh makes it out. He leaves behind a note, signed, by order of the prisoners.
Cool as ice.
He surfaces in Arizona, ties himself to the Clanton gang. The same Clantons locked in their blood feud with the Earps. Some accounts place him near the alley where Morgan Earp was shot in the back. When Wyatt began his vendetta, that cold, methodical ride through Arizona, Rudabaugh disappeared again.
Always running, always calculating, and always, somehow, surviving.
Until Mexico.
Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. By the time Rudabaugh crossed into Mexico, he had been a wanted man for nearly a decade. He had been captured, flipped, betrayed, recaptured, sentenced to death, and escaped through a sewage tunnel. He had ridden with 2 of the most famous outlaws in American history, and he was still alive.
Which means the system, every system had failed. Repeatedly. Not through incompetence alone, through something more structural, more troubling.
When institutions are corrupt from the inside, when the judge takes cuts and the mayor looks the other way, men like Rudabaugh don't just survive. They thrive. The chaos isn't the backdrop. The chaos is the infrastructure.
The 18th of February, 1886. Parral, Chihuahua. A Friday. The sun is low. Long shadows on dusty streets. Rudabaugh walks into a saloon. He's been here before. He's known here.
The fight starts over cards. A disputed bet. A shove. Rudabaugh draws first. 2 men drop. A third collapses, clutching a wound. He steps outside. His horse is gone.
Every outlaw knows the rule. Never go back.
He goes back.
He pushes through those saloon doors a second time. And the room is different now. Shadows moving. 6 bullets. He dies where he stands.
And then a local man, a grocer, known only as Jose, takes a machete. And the display in the plaza begins.
Was it vengeance? Was it a message to Mexican authorities? Was it the act of a community that had no courts, no recourse, no other language available to them?
Probably all 3. And that's what makes it so difficult to look away from. Jose wasn't a monster. He was a man living inside a system that had given him exactly one tool, and he used it.
The photographs Albert Lone took that day, the two that survived, they weren't discovered until 1943, 57 years in a trunk. Think about that. Someone kept them. Couldn't destroy them. Couldn't display them. Just kept them.
That's the detail that stays with me. Not the violence, the ambivalence, the inability to decide what those images meant, whether they were evidence or shame or both.
We romanticize the West because it's easier. Outlaws make exciting stories. 6 shooters and high noon and men with codes. But Rudabaugh's story isn't about codes. It's about what happens when the codes are fiction, when the sheriff is bought, when the judge is crooked, when the only law that functions is the law of whoever is willing to go furthest.
And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. This wasn't ancient history. Those photographs are 140 years old. The infrastructure that produced Dave Rudabaugh, the corruption, the institutional absence, the communities left to improvise their own justice, that infrastructure didn't disappear with the frontier.
It just changed its address.
The display in that Parral plaza, a severed head, as a public message, that same language is still being spoken in parts of Mexico today. Not because people are savage, because when communities lose faith in institutions, something else fills the space. It always does. And it always looks like this.
What I keep returning to is Albert Lone, 19 years old, standing in that plaza with a camera, watching men parade ahead through a crowd of children, and choosing to document it, not run from it. Document it.
What does a 19-year-old feel in that moment? We don't know. He never wrote about it, never spoke about it publicly, just put the photographs in a trunk and closed the lid.
Maybe that's the most honest response available to him. Because what do you say? What language do you reach for?
There's one more thing. The 2 negatives the Mexican police confiscated in 1886, they went into official files, and they have never resurfaced. No one knows where they are. No one has confirmed they were destroyed.
They're just gone.
Which means somewhere, possibly, there are 2 more photographs of that day. In a file, in a box, in a building that may or may not still exist, waiting.
Dave Rudabaugh didn't die once. He died in pieces. First in that saloon in Parral, then in the plaza. Then in the mythology that grew up around him, the sanitized version, the Hollywood version, the version that leaves out the machete and the pole and the children watching. We keep burying him, and he keeps surfacing. Because the things that made him possible, the corruption, the absence, the systems that looked away those things don't stay buried either. They reverberate. If this story stayed with you, if you felt something shift while you were listening, then you're exactly where Reverberating Noir is meant to find you. Subscribe, because the cases we cover don't close, they just go quiet. And quiet is the most dangerous sound there is.
Rudabaugh was captured 3 times, sentenced to death once, escaped every system that tried to hold him, and the only thing that finally stopped him was the absence of a system entirely. That's not a story about one man, that's a pattern. And patterns don't end, they wait.
The recording ends here, but the case doesn't. Somewhere, the evidence still exists. The questions still wait. If this story stayed with you, if it followed you into the silence, subscribe to Reverberating Noir. Not for us, for the stories that refuse to disappear.
Because as long as something doesn't make sense, the truth is still out there. And someone will find it.
Until next time, keep listening to the dark.